Hi, it's me, Fly with me FPV, and what I have here, or I just recently got, is a Tarot OSD. It's not a flight controller; it's an OSD with GPS capabilities. So, anyways, it's very simple. It was recommended by one of the FPV pilots that I fly with, Calypso Air. He's using this on one of his planes, and I saw it, and he said, it's pretty simple and it just shows you uh, telemetry information like battery and home arrow, which is important. So I got one from eBay, and I hooked it up on my Phantom FX61. Did a test flight, and yeah, I will include that in the later part of this video, including a walkthrough on how I hooked it up and how to do basic configuration. I'll go through the wiring of this Tarot OSD. So when you get it, you get this board and that GPS over there. So let me just zoom this in so that you can see where the pins go. All right. So at first, I don't know what these letters meant and where they would go. So I'll go through the wires first. The GPS is pretty straightforward. It goes to the back end here, and I'm not gonna take this off to show it to you. It's pretty straightforward. Now these letters represent E. This is engine. That is basically the positive wire lead over there, and this is ground, so the black wire. How I wired this is connected to my, let me zoom that out quickly, connected to my main pack. So I got a JST connector there, here, if you could see that, and that goes into those pin connectors, which are labeled E and G. So that is pretty simple. Basically, it just reads the voltage on your battery, which is very helpful when you're flying FPV. Gives you an idea if you are getting to that critical voltage level, so that you have to land. The next pins is video. So this is also a positive connector here, and ground. So how I connected this is I connected an LC filter on this plane. So those pins go to the out side of my LC filter, and I'm running off a separate battery LiPo pack. I'm running a 1000 milliamp hour just to feed my video system. So that is my connector to my 1000 milliamp hour pack that I'm carrying separate from the flight pack. So let's zoom it back again. So these next pins are pretty straightforward. It's in, video, ground. So I, meaning it's coming from your camera. So the signal wire from your camera goes here, and the V would be your positive. That would basically feed your camera power, and your G will be your ground. So all of these are going directly to my flight camera. So power will be distributed from these two wires coming from your video, and it will feed your camera and your VTX. Now be very careful if you have cameras that are not 12 volts, because if you do have cameras that are powered by, cameras that are require power less than 12, like 5 volts, those Fat Shark cameras or whatever cameras that can go beyond 5, you need to maybe put a step down transformer to bring it down to 5. But in my case, all my FPV gear are 12 volts, so that's not a problem. I just connect this to the out of my LC filter. So that is again in video ground, signal wire from your flight camera, positive, and ground, which is black. Now the remaining 3 connectors are basically out, video, and ground. So this is out, meaning going to your VTX. I got it hooked up to my 5.8 200 milliwatt VTX, and video and ground. So that's it. It's pretty straightforward. And these wires, I soldered it to the pins. Reason being is that once you put connectors here, it becomes, you know, very tight, and it gives me the flexibility to easily move this from one airframe to another, having those wires soldered, and then you know, connected to like, for example, for power, I'm standardizing on JST plugs, and these ones are basically extension servo wires that I cut for the VTX and the flight camera. So that is basically how it's wired. Again, the GPS, you don't have to do anything. It comes with the wire, 3 wires that are all connected. You just need to plug it at the back here. There's pins there. I think it's 5 pins if I'm not mistaken. Only 3 are being used. Now there's another you know, how do you configure this? This button over here, I will go through the setup, is basically a long press, short press to go through the menus and enable, disable certain features. So I'll go through that. I'll basically power this on, feed it off my DVR, and put that into the video as well. Alright, so to go to the setup, you basically press that button that I showed earlier, and press it, long press, and then you know, this is what you're gonna see. Now to go over through the option, you just basically do short presses until you get to the option that you want to go to. So for example, interface style, this is the one that works for me. Now I've seen videos where they set this a long press, you go to the option, and then another long press, sorry, let's go back, oops, yeah, it's a bit of a, so long press, and then short press to change to different option. Now the CN option, you can try that, but it has a lot of Chinese characters on the screen. So DJI is also an option, but I just you know, went for the custom option. Now to go out of the option, for this case, it's just a long press. Now let's try, for example, auto set home is turned on. Now custom interface is there, which is where you can remove, disable, or not show in your OSD. Like for example, let's go to the next page. All of these options are showing up on my OSD overlay. There's a part of a flight that I did, and it will show you the options that are available. So home distance, now long press to go to the next page, and if you see here, I disabled lifting speed. I don't really need that. I don't even know what that is. Longitude and latitude, I disabled that as well. I don't really want my screen too cluttered with stuff that I don't really need. And I also disabled azimuth. I think this is, I don't know, like lines that's showing there. I don't really need that. So again, if you want to turn on the option, just long press, and then it will say display on or display off in this case. Now you do long press again and then short press. Now it's on. I don't want it on, so I'm going to turn it off. Long press, short presses to go to save it, and yeah, basically that's it. You press exit, long press, and it will get you back to the main screen. Now I will explain what these numbers are, but on later on the video, when I'm actually on the DVR recording. So there you go, pretty straightforward. It's just to go over the menu. It's just long presses and short presses. There's really not much options in here because this is an OSD. This is not a flight controller that has flight modes, like return to home or anything like that. This just gives you engine voltage, video voltage if you're running it separately. But you know, if you get creative with your wiring, basically this can all be coming from the same LiPo pack. Gives you satellites because there's a home arrow, which it is quite useful, but it's not as granular and fine compared to, for example, the Vector or the Pixhawk or the Cyclops Tornado. It just shows you where the direction of home is, and once you follow that arrow, you'll get a general sense where you are if you do get lost. So yeah, anyways, let's go to the flight video, and I'll show you how it looks like while on flight. So here at the lower left hand corner of the screen where it says ENG, that's the engine voltage. On this flight I was using a 4S battery. On the upper left hand of the screen, this is the number of satellites. It's on this flight I was able to get 11, and it was pretty fast. About less than 2 minutes I was already getting 5 up to 11 satellites. Now these numbers on the left hand middle part of the screen, S means your speed, V, I believe this, I'm not sure, but this could be cumulative distance, and the D above it is distance from home. This number in the middle of the screen, top part, I thought it was heading at first, but I think this is the degrees in relation to home. That's what I think this number is, because as I move the plane around, it kind of changes, but it's not really heading, so to speak. This number on the upper right hand corner of the screen is your flight time. Now I don't know when this starts. I have to test it again because I didn't know if it started when I powered on or when it got enough satellites. So I will post a comment on this video once I find out when this actual flight timer starts. This number here with an H, that's height or altitude, and again it's in meters, and yeah, I don't know if you could change this in the menu. This number on the lower right hand corner, which is AV, this is my separate LiPo pack that powers my VTX and camera. So basically that is the Tarot OSD. It's a very simple OSD that's pretty easy to hook up and configure. It doesn't give you much information compared to the other OSD/flight controllers, but for my smaller planes, not my long range ones. You know, this OSD is good enough, and I will continue using it on my short range planes. Thank you.